Ok, salut la classe. This is a video to reinforce what we've seen in class, which is verbs and the present tense for ER verbs in French. Now, it's important that you understand you have used the present tense before without realizing how it was formed, but it is important you understand how it's put together because it's got implications for the other tenses you're going to use as well in French. Plus, it can be fun. So first of all, the present tense in French is used to describe things you do on a regular basis, routine, or what you're doing now. So for instance, in French, to translate I play football every week, which is routine, or I am playing football now, which is what you're doing now, you will use the same present tense. Now, to put verbs in the present tense in French, you need to start with what we call an infinitive. It's a bit of a fancy word, but actually, if you're thinking about it's the verb before you put it in any tense. So it's like your starting point, the basic form of the verb. Sometimes we call it the dictionary form of the verb because that's what you will find in a dictionary. A dictionary won't tell you how to say I went, but it will give you to go in French. Now, if you've understood the concept of an infinitive, which I will come back to in a minute, you will realize that a lot of infinitives in French and in ER. In English, to recognize infinitive, you put to in front of them. So you've got to play, to watch. But we've already used a number of verbs in French ending in ER, and this is a list of a few of them that we've covered together. Jouer, to play, regarder, to watch, penser, to think, surfer, to surf, écouter, to listen, parler, to speak or to talk, répéter, to repeat, aimer, to like, détester, to hate, utiliser, to use, but we've got others like adorer, for example, or bavarder, and you probably know plenty more. Now, to put the above verbs in the present tense, so in order to say I play or I'm playing, we will need to add a person first, and then we will remove the ER from the infinitive and we will add some endings. Now, I'll come back to that in a minute. Now, if you're thinking, I still don't know what an infinitive is the slide to try and explain it to you. Now, you've got the following sentence in English, we played football last week. Now, if you look at your sentence in English, we is the person or the subject of your sentence. Played is your verb, it describes the action, and it is currently in the past tense in English. So, the verb is in the past tense. The corresponding verb in its basic, most simplest form before you put it in the past tense, that's the infinitive. In English would be to play. And what you would do is you put ed in English to make it into a past tense. So basically, once again, the infinitive is purely your starting point before you put the verb in any tense. I've referred to the verb as the word describing the action in a sentence. It's often the case, you've been taught at primary school possibly, that a verb is a doing word or an action word, but watch out, because something like to think or to like, which express opinions, are also verbs, but they're not necessarily physical actions. So this is how we form it. Now, if you're going to go for bronze, I would suggest you learn the first two. Silver, I would suggest you learn the first 5, and gold, I would suggest you learn all of them. Now, the important thing, first of all, is to be able to recognize when a verb is in the present tense. The second step is to understand how you form it. And the third step is to remember all these endings by heart so you can write and speak without struggling to remember them. Now, this is our persons in French. Traditionally, this is the order we put them in. Je is I. Tu is you if you're speaking to a friend, if you're in a more informal situation. Il is he. Elle is she. On is one way to say we. Nous is another way to say we. Vous is you if you're in a formal situation, so you're speaking to somebody you don't know, or you're speaking to a group of people. And they is il with an S, masculine, and elle with an S, feminine. If you have a group of 1,000,000 girls and one boy, you're still going to have to say il with an S. Now, once you've crossed off your ER, and the example I've used here is the verb jouer, to play. I've crossed off my ER, and I've got to add an ending depending on the person. I mean, it's quite easy because the first few endings are almost the same. So for je, it's I. For tu is es. For il is I. For elle is I. On is I. Nous, ons. Vous, iz. Il and elle with an S, ent. This is how you pronounce them. You're going to see that the last one, although it's spelled like the on sound, we're not going to sound it. It's a bit of an exception. You've got to shush the ent at the end when the word is a verb. So, let's pronounce them. Je joue, tu joues, il joue, elle joue, on joue, nous jouons, vous jouez, il, elle joue. So it's important because they're not quite pronounced the same as when you write them down. Tu, for example, you're not going to sound the S at the end. We know this because we don't sound consonants generally at the end of French words. And we've also got the ENT, which you have to shush, okay, which is a bit counterintuitive, but you've got to remember when it's a verb, you don't say it, okay? And in a nutshell, this is how you build the present tense. So it will take you a bit of time to try and learn them and use them without thinking too much about them, but it's worth investing your time in it. Now, what I haven't covered in this one is the other types of infinitives in IR and RE, and also the irregular verbs, but we'll do this later on. Okay, if you have any questions or anything, please come and ask me, and I hope this helped you a little bit.